Contemporary horror often loses its edge in favor of familiarity. The industry has become saturated with sequels, remakes, and safe, predictable storytelling. In the midst of that landscape, Together stands out as a film of rare clarity and purpose. It is a horror film that is not concerned with audience expectations or genre trends. It is crafted with precision, emotionally intelligent, and deeply unsettling. This film reaffirms the value of original voices and focused execution. Michael Shanks delivers a vision that feels fully realized, confident in its stillness and unafraid of discomfort. The story follows Millie and Tim, a couple relocating to the countryside for Millie's new teaching job. The imbalance in their relationship is immediately apparent. Millie proposes to Tim at their going-away party. He hesitates, and from this moment forward, tension grows beneath every interaction. Their move brings physical isolation, but the emotional distance is already present. A hike through the forest ends with them falling into a cave during a rainstorm. Tim drinks from a pool of water, and the following morning they wake up partially fused together. What begins as a surreal, unexplained event becomes a slow descent into a shared physical and psychological transformation. The horror is not simply in the fusion. It's in the implications, in the irreversible change taking place between two people who are no longer emotionally aligned. Alison, Brie, and Dave Franco give performances that are layered, nuanced, and fully committed. The entire film rests on their ability to carry the emotional weight with subtlety and restraint. There is no theatricality here. Every line, every look, every reaction is grounded in character. Their chemistry is undeniable, but it is not romanticized. It is fraught, volatile, and wounded. Brie brings an undercurrent of sorrow to Millie, a quiet, building resignation into a relationship that stopped giving back. Franco's Tim feels emotionally stunted, often childish in his responses, yet never without his humanity. The performances allow the horror to unfold naturally, without spectacle. They make the emotional stakes feel lived in, which makes the physical horror all the more devastating. Every decision they make as actors enhances the narrative. Michael Shanks directs with focus and restraint. The cinematography avoids excess, framing scenes with clarity and tension. The majority of the film takes place in a single location, yet there is no repetition or stagnation. The visual language evolves alongside the characters. One of the most striking elements is the use of color during Tim's nightmare sequences. These moments are bathed in cold blue light, immediately separating them from reality and introducing a sense of disorientation without relying on exposition. The sound design is equally precise. Stretching skin, quiet breathing, and periods of silence are used deliberately, never for shock. Each sonic choice heightens the unease. The horror comes from the atmosphere and the intimacy, not from noises or chaos. These choices reflect a director who understands how to guide the audience without over-explaining or overwhelming them. The script, also written by Shanks, is lean and exact. There is no extraneous dialogue, no filler, no unnecessary exposition. The story unfolds through behavior and consequence. Information isn't delivered through speeches or background dumps. It's revealed through action and interaction. The pacing is one of the film's greatest strengths. It moves with steady momentum, neither rushed nor indulgent. Every scene advances the emotional or physical deterioration of the characters. The balance between emotional conflict and horror is carefully maintained. The script does not sacrifice one for the other. It allows the horror to emerge organically from the characters' choices and mental states. This kind of narrative discipline is rare, especially in a genre that often relies on tropes or shock value. Together does neither. It trusts the viewer to stay engaged without manipulation. The practical effects, my favorite thing in Together, are executed with care and realism. The physical fusion of the characters is presented in stages, each more disturbing than the last. The texture of the skin, the stretching of the limbs, the breaking of bones, everything is grounded in physical rules. The pain feels real because it's grounded in tactile detail. The digital effects, when used, are unobtrusive. They support the practical work instead of replacing it. The integration is seamless. There is no moment where the illusion breaks. This level of execution reflects an understanding of restraint and intention. Horror effects often fall into the trap of excess, but Together avoids this. The visuals serve the emotional arc rather than distract from it. Together is a film about codependency and the slow erosion of identity within an unbalanced relationship. The physical fusion is not metaphorical, it's literal, but it serves to illuminate the emotional truth at the center of the story. Tim is a man wounded by past trauma. He clings to Millie, not out of love but out of fear. That fear distorts his view of intimacy. Millie, who begins the film with a desire for growth and change, is gradually pulled into a dynamic she no longer believes in. The film traces how unresolved trauma can corrode emotional development. It shows how that corrosion spreads to the people closest to us. There is no villain here, just damage. The horror grows from that emotional rot. It does not rely on allegory or abstraction. It confronts its subject matter directly, and the result is deeply affecting. The movie shares thematic lineage with films like The Fly and Possession, but it never imitates. The influence of Cronenberg is clear in the body horror and the exploration of psychological decay through physical transformation. However, Together maintains its own identity. The structure, tone, and execution all reflect an original voice. The horror community often looks backward for validation. Together looks inward. It understands that horror does not need a vast mythology or an external antagonist. The horror here is internal, rooted in the body, the mind, and the relationship between the two. Michael Shanks has crafted a film that contributes meaningfully to the tradition of intimate horror. It joins the lineage, but it stands apart from it. The one gripe that I have is the final moment. The film's final image introduces a tonal shift that's pretty difficult to reconcile with the emotional gravity that precedes it. While the narrative itself concludes in a way that feels resolved and thematically appropriate, the final shot adds a note that risks undermining the atmosphere. The decision to extend the ending by one final beat creates a sense of detachment rather than completion. It's not an error in logic, just tone. The story has already reached its natural conclusion. That extra moment serves no real narrative purpose and alters the emotional rhythm of the final scene. It doesn't negate the power of the film, but it just slightly dilutes the impact of the last note. In conclusion, Together is a film that demands attention and rewards focus. It's a carefully constructed work of horror that never compromises its vision. Every element, from the performances to the sound design to the visual storytelling, works in service of the story. This is not horror designed for mass appeal. It's challenging, disturbing, and emotionally honest. For viewers who are drawn into horror that reflects real psychological complexity, this film is essential viewing. Thanks for watching this video. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, and if you liked the video, please consider giving it a like and sharing it with your friends. If you didn't like it, thanks for sticking around anyway, and I'll see you on the next one.